Hello and welcome to another Balance Your Productivity live broadcast here every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. You can like and follow my Facebook page and you'll get notifications of when I'm going live, and you'll also be able to catch up on the recording of each of the broadcasts. Thank you for watching, and do feel free to share this either live, so you can catch it live, or the recording with anyone who feels might need it. My name is Claire Evans and I'm a time management, productivity and balance coach, helping you to maintain and improve your productivity while also creating a happier and more fulfilled life in an easier, more naturally balanced way, so you're not constantly feeling stressed out. If you would like to add a comment or ask a question, then do so in the box below, and I'll either get back to you live or after the session. So this week's topic, following on from last week, which was about email, is how to make more effective use of your email. I touched on some of the key tips around managing your inbox and managing email generally last week, but I just wanted to go into a bit more detail this week on actually how you can write effective emails. So if you're writing effective emails, then that as a means of communication is a much better way of managing and dealing with things, and you're not then slipping into some of the mistakes that people make around writing emails. And we know that, email eats up enough of our time as it is. Up to 40% of our time is spent on email, and it's always one of the first topics that I discuss, or it's a hot topic of conversation that people want to find out ways of using it more effectively. So while we can't avoid it completely, here are a few ideas just to help the whole process be more efficient in the way that you use and write your emails, which can apply to both small businesses, individuals, as well as larger organizations. One of the key things with email that it is a fairly quick and concise form of communication. So make sure that your emails are concise and to the point, and don't waffle on for pages and pages. No one's got that much time to scroll through a long email. So if you can, keep it to one screen or 2 to 3 screens maximum of information. And if there is a lot of information, then put it in an attachment. And attach a document to it with a summary of what's required or what's needed, or the information in the email itself. Also use proper structure when you're creating emails. You can have a tendency to want to slip into either text speak or abbreviate things too much, but it needs to be easy to read. So if you lay it out properly and use some structure like lists and bullet points and headings within the email, it makes it much easier and quicker to read, and people can quickly get at the information that's needed. Also make sure that you're using a meaningful subject when you send an email, or change it if the discussion moves on. That's something, again, you can see quite a lot, that in a long email thread, the subject may well have changed, and just go in and change it so that it's relevant to the topic of that email. It makes it much easier to follow the discussion or deal with what's in that email. Use relevant subject labels. So if you can get into the habit of using a label such as action required, the person immediately knows that there's something important in there that needs action. Whether it's for information only, may be relevant. Please respond if you need a response coming back. Something that gives the reader of the email an indication of what the purpose is and if they need to do something. In email systems, you see the name of the person and the subject line. So if you can quickly read, the subject line says action needed, or get back to me, or information required, or this is info only, they know whether to click on that or not, or what they're likely to see, what action is going to be taken when they do go into an email. But avoid excessive use of subjects such as urgent, important, high priority, if they're not, you'll start to invalidate using the subject like that, and people will just ignore it if they see it too often, but only use it when it's relevant. Be very clear and specific if something needs to be done by a certain time. So if you do have an action that's required, make it very clear what the action is, when it's needed by. Just generally with actions and requests for information, people can be too generic and not specific enough, so it can be misinterpreted. Be very clear if you do need something and you need it by a certain time. Also, use the addressee fields appropriately. We've all been on the receiving end of those sort of long CC lists of people that have been included in that. As a general rule, using the to field for the person that this email is specifically addressed to and who needs to take some action, and perhaps use the CC field for information only. Try and avoid CCing people within that don't actually need to take any action on it, or make it again very clear in the email. And use the BCC, or avoid using it unless you're using it for mass mailings. Be open about who you're sending the email to, and don't CC in everybody and anybody. That's something else that people can be guilty of, and particularly in larger organisations, is that you'll CC in everybody and his dog just because you think they might need to be included, but only include people that are really relevant and need to see that email, and take them out. Similarly, don't use the reply all. Another frequent mistake, or something that we see quite often, we've all experienced, is people hit the reply all and then everybody gets the conversation that's going on, whether it's relevant to them or not. If it's not relevant, only reply back to the person that needs that information or needs the confirmation of the meeting. Not everyone needs to see everyone else replying to a meeting request or an information request. So think about who you're sending to, who is CC'd in, and only send it to a person that really needs to read it. There's no point in clogging up 5, 10, 15 people's inbox with a CC'd email if they really don't need to see it. If you receive emails and there is a request for information or there's a question, make sure that you've answered it, and also preempt any further questions that might come out of it with a little bit of thought about what's going into the email, rather than answering one question and then another request comes back and then you have to end up playing this email ping pong answering questions. As I said last week, with some of the sort of email ping pong games that we can get into, is if you do end up doing that and thinking about when you're writing an email, is it actually going to be simpler and quicker and more effective just to pick up the phone and deal with it there and then, or request a brief conversation or a meeting if the person's not there at the time? Do read the email before you send it out. We all make mistakes. We all mistype and skip words. Brain often works faster than the keyboard. So check it through before you send it. And don't use email for confidential or sensitive information unless you can send it in a very secure way. People accidentally forward on information, particularly if it's a long thread, or it may get intercepted, or if it goes to other people on the list. So be aware of that. And also something to think about, which is why sometimes, especially if you've got a long email or an email that is more sensitive, to leave it for a bit and then come back to it and read it as the person that's receiving it is going to be reading it. When we type an email, you type it as you're thinking, which isn't necessarily what tends to come out on the keyboard. And I'm sure we've all experienced that, both in emails that we've sent and emails that we've received. It can be interpreted in very different ways because you're just looking at letters on a screen, words on a screen, and there's no sense of the emotion behind it. So if it is something like that, take a step back from it and then reread it, and you're more likely then to read it as the person that's receiving it rather than you as you're typing it, and you'll perhaps pick up on the tone's not quite right, some of the words aren't quite right, is the intention right, is the request, is it clear enough? So think about a few of those things as well. So those are just a few of the what I call email etiquette tips and ideas. There are a lot more which go into more detail on my blog, and there are a couple of blog posts that I wrote around email do's and don'ts and how you can be more productive when you use email. And I will put those links in the comments below. If you do have any questions, any challenges specifically around email, then do drop a question in the comments and I will get back to you on that. So that's it for now. Brief and short to the point and hopefully helpful. And I will see you in the next session. Take care.